Doug and Mary's down in California, and they just drove up the coast and arrived at Scenic Roads, and arrived in Corvallis yesterday. Today we visited Joseph Holaday down in Eugene and spent a couple hours down there, Mom and Dad and me. I'm Steve Holaday, by the way, their son. And I just visited Mom's baby, and visited Joseph. I just graduated from Oregon State University, got my master's degree. And tomorrow is Thomas Holiday's first birthday. And yesterday, 2 days ago, was my birthday. And 5 days ago was Katie's birthday on June 7th. So we're here to ask Mom and Dad a bunch of questions about the history of the family. And Katie, did you want to start asking?
She knows my first question.
Okay, what's the first question? Why don't you ask it? This is Kate, my wife. I think she'll keep me.
Maybe.
Don't push.
I wanted to know something about each of your mothers, because I know about your fathers, but I don't know anything about your moms except their names and what they looked like, and so I thought you could tell us something about them.
What would you like me to tell?
Well, what was your mom's family all about? What did her parents do? Where did they come from?
All right, I'd be glad to. My grandfather Reifsteck was Andrew Reifsteck, and he came from Germany in the late 1800s, was a naturalized citizen, and he married Anna Milhouse, who was first generation American. Her parents were from Germany, so both grandparents were of German origin. The oldest one of the family was George. Next came Bertha.
And Bert, right?
Aunt Bert, Auntie Bert. And came Gus, who died in, well, I'll come back to that. Gus, and then Bill, and Alvin.
Wow.
And Anna, who was my mother. Anna Christine Reifsteck was my mother. And then the youngest was Andrew Reifsteck. Now they were farmers, and they went to Arkansas because Arkansas was being developed as rice growing country, and they thought they could make their fortunes growing rice. And the first year or two they were there, Gus died of malaria. And my grandmother was so upset she came back to northern Illinois. And then they were raised there. And my mother went to the normal school in Minnesota, St. Cloud, Minnesota. I went to normal school there and had her first teaching job up in the Iron Range in Virginia, Minnesota. And there she met this dashing young doctor who was just out of internship, who was a doctor for United States Steel up in the Iron Range, and that was Dr. William Shealy. And they were married and then settled in Galena, Illinois.
Why Galena?
Well, I think I've asked that question. They needed a doctor, and my mother wanted to be near her family. Bert was there. My grandparents by this time were living in Hanover, Illinois, which is 16 miles from Galena. And when I was 3.5, almost 4, my mother died of a lung abscess, which of course today would not have been fatal at all. And I went to live with her mother, Mrs. Reifsteck, Grandma Reifsteck and Grandpa Reifsteck, in Hanover until I was 11. In the meantime, My dad's mother, Elvina Shealy, who was a widow, had been keeping house for him. So then when I was 11, I went to live with them, and Barney, Uncle Andy, bought this beautiful home on Park Avenue in Galena, sold the house in Galena, and they moved up to keep house for Barney. Okay?
Now, is Barney, it's just his nickname?
Yeah, Andrew
And
was.
Okay, and I had heard, first of all, I want to go back to Arkansas. Your grandmother was upset because he got it because they were in Arkansas from the
They were in
mosquitoes
Arkansas
there.
from the malaria mosquitoes. See, that
Yeah.
was before the days of quinine
Yeah.
and before any mosquito control. And the mosquitoes, certain kinds of mosquitoes carried the
Yeah.
malaria. It is, wasn't it,
Anopheles.
Anopheles, so,
Anopheles.
Yeah. So,
spirochete, I think it is, something like that.
so the whole family moved back.
The whole family moved back.
And I think Ruthie told me that you had, I thought she said your mother had sisters named Helen and Claire, but maybe that was your
That
dad.
was my dad,
Okay, that's it.
had Helen and Clara.
Okay,
Do you want to hear about him?
sure.
Okay, he was, my grandma Sheila, Aldina, was born and raised in Rostock, Germany, and I don't know where my grandpa was born and raised, my grandfather Sheila, but he became a Lutheran minister. He graduated from a Wartburg in Germany, and
You can't even have any cherries
my line
anymore.
is blanket.
Kaboom.
This is for posterity, even. Anyway, they came to America after they were married,
Uh-huh.
and he became the Lutheran minister in Joliet, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And there were 4, I'll have to count them up. The oldest one was Lottie, who died quite young of cancer, and I never knew her.
Mm-hmm.
Was her middle name Da?
What?
Was her middle name Da?
Lonnie died. Lonnie died.
That was Lottie.
Oh.
What an irreverent
I'm trying to be so
Yeah.
proper.
Circumspect.
That's impossible around this button. Then there was Clara. I think there was Lottie and Clara and Helen and William, that's my father,
Mhm.
and Richard.
Mm-hmm.
I know Lottie was married and had 3 children, and I know one rather well.
Mm-hmm.
One has died, and the other one I've never been close to because we never lived close together.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, Helen was an organist, and when she was a church organist, and when she got married, my father took her place as church organist. In the meantime, he had trained by being the pumper. You know, in the old organs, you had to pump the bellows.
Uh-huh.
And so he would pump the bellows, and then he became organist, something that he loved the rest of his life. In fact, we had a record that he put on tape, so we have it now on tape for posterity.
Great.
And
Cool.
Richard, my father and Richard both became doctors.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Helen and Clara were teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And then my father went to the University of Chicago and Rush Medical College, and then ended up there in the Iron Range and married my mother and came to Galena.
Mm-hmm.
And then, let's see, when I was 15, he married Ruth Enders,
Mm-hmm.
my stepmother, who was one of my best friends.
Mm-hmm.
And he died in 1949, just about a month before Billy was born.
Mm-hmm. He died before Billy was born?
Billy was born. And
Oh, you're Billy.
my Billy.
Okay.
Our son.
Yeah, I'm getting confused now. Okay.
There's a lot of bills to be
Yeah, I
confused
know.
about. And so that's that as far as, because I included some of the history of him and with my mother's.
Now your Ruthie again told me something. We were at her house and she showed me a picture of a Captain Reifsteck, who was the captain of a ship out of somewhere out of German, Amsterdam.
Oh,
or
Riemann? Riemann?
Bremen or
Riemann.
Okay.
That was my Grandma Sheely's father. He was the captain of a ship out of Rostock.
Rostock.
Rostock, R-O-S-T-O-C-K. It was in East Germany, but it now, of course, is part of Germany someplace.
So
It's up on the North Sea, and they went down in a terrible storm off the coast of Norway, and the people on shore could see them, but the storm was so severe they couldn't launch any lifeboats to go out and save them. And when the storm was over, they never even found a heavy steel chain. They never found anything from the boat. It was completely broken up.
So his name wouldn't have been Reifsteck.
It was Riemann.
Riemann. Okay, I got
Riemann and
Rostock
Reifsteck, and Rostock,
Okay.
and I can't roll my R's, which is too bad.
You mean Riemann and Rostock?
Riemann, yes.
Okay. So what was, you got, had to move a number of times when you were little. That must have been hard.
Well, no, it was with family.
Yeah. So you knew them all already? And
Yeah, and it was a very close family. And as I got, say, 8, 9 years old, I would sometimes go up and spend a week in the summer at different times with my dad and my other grandmother, my Grandma Sheila. And then, of course, Aunt Bert lived there, and she had 3 kids, and we all would get together. This is what I miss, people miss these days. We'd all get together for Sunday dinner, and then Bert or my dad would play hymns, and we'd all gather around the piano and sing all afternoon. All of us.
Neat.
It was real neat,
Yeah.
and it was fun.
In fact, Uncle George sang with the singing group.
Oh, back in the 30s, 20s and 30s, Uncle George was a marvelous tenor, and he, in those days, lived in Long Beach, California.
Wow.
He was manager of a Sherwin-Williams store, and he sang for a while with the Revelers. Now, the Revelers were a well-known male quartet who sang. And they made money singing, but then when they started traveling, my uncle had to drop out because he couldn't sing and travel and manage a store. And he felt that there was more future and security in working in the store than traveling with the singing group. But he had a beautiful tenor voice. And when I was in high school, I used to go over to visit my grandma and grandpa, and he'd be there lots of times. And I'd play the piano for him so he could sing, you know.
Wow.
Pale Hands I Love Beside the Shalimar. All those
Hum a few bars, sing a few bars for us of that song.
Pale hands I love beside the Shalimar. Where are you now? Who lies beneath your spell? Don't ask me to sing anymore. I thought I did pretty well remembering that.
Great. So, did you have one place you preferred to stay when you were a kid?
When I was a
You
kid,
were moving around and stuff?
I loved my Grandma Reifsteck. And my Grandma Sheila was a martinet.
What's that mean?
She was very, very strict. And I think in her own way she loved me very much, but...
The letter of the law was followed to the letter of the law.
And she never showed any affection.
Mm-hmm.
Or his mother, grandmother, you know, treated me like her own kid.
Mm-hmm.
She was strict. I had to do what she wanted me to do.
Yeah.
But Grandma Shealy was a real strict one.
Mm-hmm.
Was your dad strict?
Yes, very.
So he must have inherited that from her a little bit, huh?
Yeah, it's the old German. Achtung! You know.
Yeah.
Ouch, no.
Yeah.
Well, what else haven't we asked you?
I can't think of it. I've bared my soul.
Well,
It's his turn.
how about you, Dad? You're,
Oh, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Oh, not so loud.
just because
That's enough.
Oh, because the baby's sleeping.
Okay, quiet, yeah.
You said once that you were considering going into the opera, but
Yeah, I think I could have.
you wanted to raise a family instead.
Not no, I just didn't, I didn't have enough get up and go for all the hours and hours and hours of study. And it was depression,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't want to ask my father for any more money.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a great big bit of difference then, and we didn't have opportunity, say, to earn money by singing in television or things like that. You know, you had to have, the times had to be right.
Yeah. Okay. And
Years of his apprenticeship would be
Yeah,
too
yeah,
long.
yeah, and coaching and lessons.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why did you decide to go to the University of Illinois and
Chicago.
Chicago? And what did you study there and all that? Just general.
First, I went to Francis Scheimer, which was a small girls' junior college and prep school in Mount Carroll, Illinois. It was a very small girls' school, supervised by the University of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, being out in the country like that, it was only 30 miles from home. Is he awake?
Dad, you want to get a little closer? Okay.
And it has now been moved to the North Shore. I think it's Winnetka, Illinois,
Uh-huh.
North Shore of Chicago. And it's been co-ed for years. Because they couldn't get girls to come to girls' school way out in the country there.
Yeah, I bet.
And so it's just and since my father had gone to Chicago and this school was affiliated kind of, there would be a couple of the trustees of the University of Chicago would be a trustee of Scheimer at that time. So I just went to the University of Chicago.
Okay. And got a liberal arts degree there?
No, I got a Bachelor of Science, and I majored in home ec as a hospital dietitian.
Oh.
And yes, they teach you how to lose weight. I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated the department. You know, you're in a department with all women, and they were nasty. And unless you came over and spent time dusting their desks and stuff, this is at the University of Chicago. You were kind of like that. And I loved the science courses. I loved them. I should have majored in chemistry or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And so when I got out of there, and when I found out, it was too late to change without going to school longer. And my father was always saying how much money he was spending.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so all I wanted to do was get a degree
Right.
and
Become independent.
become independent.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Can before we get into Dad's background, and while we're talking about the university, Dad, why did you go to University of Chicago, and how did you meet Mom, and
When did you get married?
when did you get married, and how did the war fit in all this?
Well, the war wouldn't
Within 2 sentences or less.
2 sentences or less. First, at the outset, I'd like to say I just learned more about my wife's family than I have in something over 50 years.
You never asked.
They asked and I didn't. You never talked about it either. Okay, why did I go to the University of Chicago? Is that the first question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I answered that earlier today in our conversations. I come from Highland Park, New Jersey, which is just south of New Brunswick. New Brunswick had the university, Rutgers University.
Mm-hmm.
Rutgers University was a semester school. $200 a semester is $400 a year. University of Chicago is a quarter system. $100 a quarter, that's $300 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite a difference in Depression times.
Mm-hmm.
$100 was a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's why he went to Chicago.
Okay.
Besides, it's a pretty good school.
It's one of the best in the country.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, one of the top. Dad had gone there
Oh.
for biochemistry.
Mm-hmm.
His graduate work.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He was interested in chemistry, and that's why he went there.
Is that where he got a? Did he get a PhD?
No.
No.
Never got a PhD?
He never got a doctor.
People called him
Never got a
doctor, but
Okay.
he never became one.
He had all the information, but
Yeah.
the degree didn't matter to him.
Right. And at that
The
time, you didn't need it
information
to
was-
do all this stuff that he did, apparently.
Pardon?
They
At
did
that
call.
time, you didn't need to have a PhD
No.
to do all the stuff that.
Yeah, they didn't hang
at
your,
the
your ability on whatever
On your resume.
Right.
resume.
And
Never.
how many publications you had out?
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah. no,
Okay.
nobody. No, he just did the research and helped build up the laboratories.
Okay.
So then you guys met in the choir.
We met in the choir at the university and became pretty good friends.
We were very good friends long before we were
Really?
romantically involved.
How many years? How long before you were romantically involved?
Oh, 3, I'd say.
3
I was
years?
also-
Couple, 3
Yeah.
years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, jeepers, you know.
Well, we'd all go to the same parties and stuff, as all choir people.
Uh-huh.
And, we found out we were friendly, and finally we decided maybe we ought to do something about it.
Do you remember where you were when you first kissed?
Yes, I do.
Where?
We were at a party at Ruth and Paul Archer Place.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And you and Zena and I were on a
Treasure hunt.
treasure hunt, not, what do you call them, a hunt.
Yeah.
We were the team. And,
Oh.
Zena Bailey, well, she's now Zena Sutherland.
Southern.
The 3 of us were the team, and we won. I cheated.
Oh,
And,
mother.
and we won a bottle of champagne, and the 3 of us drank the whole bottle and wouldn't let anybody else have it.
It was our prize.
It was our prize.
And then you kissed after you got a little looped?
Yeah.
I just
Ah.
had more champagne cheated, I don't remember that.
See?
Whatever.
I remember.
And so then how long after that were you married?
Oh, that was in the summer. Had to be, because he would sometimes go home to New Jersey, like in the summer.
Mhm.
And then he went out to Denver to be with his grandfolks
Yeah.
when somebody was
Couple of
sick.
summers. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so it was a couple of years.
Okay.
I was 23 when I was married. I was an old lady.
In those days.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how old were you, Dad?
Well, 4 years older, so I guess that was
27.
27.
Mm-hmm. That was
27.
That was an old man.
That was it,
at that
yeah.
time.
In fact, that was 1941, wasn't
Yeah.
And you were married in a little church there?
And,
it? Yeah, Bond Chapel.
no, it wasn't
No,
Bob.
no.
Thorndike
Thorndike
Hilton.
Hilton Chapel.
And we were married on December 4th, 1941. And on December 7th, 1941, the Japs attacked Pearl Harbor. It was a very dramatic time to live.
Wow. And
And you went, how long before you went off to war?
He was drafted
Okay,
2
that
months.
was December 4th, I was drafted very
February.
shortly after that.
February.
Mhm.
And I went off on February 2nd, I think it was.
Wow.
Something like that.
2 months later, you say?
Mhm.
And wasn't it that you called? They thought you in your records you were dead.
I had a good job with United Airlines. I've been in Denver. And war was coming on, something was coming on, things were building
You
up.
wanted a job, that's
I
what
wanted a
you...
job, that's right. So I applied to United Airlines and took all the tests out in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, fine, now we're gonna fly into Chicago, and you'll take some tests and interview in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll take it from there. So they flew me in, I took my test, everything's fine. I said, great, what's your draft status? I haven't heard anything.
My
So
number.
I went to the draft board, and they looked. I sat there for about an hour, waiting for somebody to say yes or no. Can't find it, we'll call you. Well, that was on Monday, and they called me on Wednesday, and I think it was Wednesday, and said, we found it. My file had been paperclipped to somebody who was in the deceased file.
Mm-hmm.
And manila folders,
Mm-hmm.
and my folder happened to be clipped with his.
Wow.
So they finally found me, and I very shortly got a letter, dear friend and neighbor.
Wow.
That
Wow.
was it. So
That was your draft notice, your dear friend and neighbor. But you see, no knowledge of draft status, no job, whether it was United Airlines or anything.
Anybody,
You
so
could
what would have happened?
You could dig ditches or something, but any job that had any future,
Right,
You had to have some kind of proof for that.
yeah, what your
Yeah,
draft
exactly.
status was.
okay.
Okay, no draft status, no job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
So then you didn't finish school, Dad?
I did not know.
How
I
come?
was not the best student to begin with,
Okay.
but in fact I started out in pre-med. I was
Uh-huh.
very interested, and I learned a lot, but I had not good enough grades to
Right,
continue.
right.
And when the war came along, I was discontinued.
But before that, you had tried to get a job with United.
yeah,
I happened to be out in
think
Denver.
what a life we could have led if he'd gotten that job
Yeah.
In fact, the job I would have had would have been traffic manager,
in Denver.
and which was, not
Wow.
much in those little puddle jumper airports they had in those days.
Yeah, but now.
But now, we'd be able to fly all over the world
Sure.
Yeah.
without a nickel's payment of anything.
Sure.
Yeah, the
And
war
so our
really,
kids.
the war really changed your life, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Changed a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
And so then you went to training in February?
Oh,
Yeah, February, I think it was February 2nd.
Where?
Camp Grant,
Camp Grant in Illinois
Rockford, Illinois.
for infantry training. Well, just a basic infantry is what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I was sent out to,
Denver.
I was sent out to Boise, Idaho. And I worked as a lab tech out in Boise, Idaho, which happened to be an Air Force B-17 staging area.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a pharmacist I used to buddy around with, also an enlisted man, who I didn't think too much of. He'd been a drug salesman, and he was kind of a lush, and he applied for OCS and got it. And I thought, well, I'm not interested in OCS as such, but you get paid a lot more than you do as a private. I think I was a PFC by that time, so
Mhm.
big deal. No, I was a corporal by that time. So anyway, I applied for OCS and I made it.
What is OCS? I don't know.
Officers.
Officers Candidate School, Officer
Okay.
Candidate School.
Mm-hmm.
And you became a 90-day wonder. You got a commission if you passed it, after 3 months training.
Wow.
So with a commission, I could get more money.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you want to become an officer? So I can serve my country much better.
Yeah.
Well, whatever.
Yeah.
Words to that
Is that what you told them?
Well,
To that
I
effect?
couldn't say, well, I can have more money and then I can go see my wife more often.
That's right.
Yeah.
No way.
So then what? Then would they send you after that?
Okay.
You were in Denver for a while, and that was...
They sent me down to Fitzsimmons General Hospital in Denver. And then from there,
You went to Greensboro, but
Greensboro,
then...
North Carolina.
But then the camp wasn't built yet, and
That's
so
right.
they sent you to Carlisle Barracks
Carlisle
in
Barracks.
Pennsylvania.
Which was the same kind of training we'd had at OCS, except it was for MDs, doctors coming in as civilians
Uh-huh.
to train them how to be soldiers, or how to be, not necessarily soldiers, but live the life as a
Right.
military man.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And they would go through a lot of the same training we had. Close order drill and that sort of thing.
Right.
Which is kind of silly for a man who's been to 4 years of medical school and stuff.
Yeah.
Then after basic training, BTC 10 in Greensboro opened up, I was transferred down there and assigned to there.
Okay.
And we were all settled there for about a year, and things were building up in Europe. D-Day was coming, I guess. No.
D-Day.
D-Day was coming, June 6th. 1944.
No, D-Day was
D-Day,
44. You're right, 44.
Okay, so you're in the States up until in the 44.
Yeah.
No, he went over. You went overseas.
Well, no.
In the spring of 44.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I was transferred to as an MAC, Medical Administrative Corps, to a infantry outfit. Well, no, I went into a replacement depot. I wasn't transferred to anything.
Rebel depot.
Just a rebel depot. As people got
Shot up.
shot up and either died or shipped back to the States or whatever, they needed replacements. So we got a replacement depot.
You mean the
MACs.
As an MAC.
You mean as those guys got shot up?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You'd have to replace them.
Well, we replaced them, but MACs initially were started because they would wind up in the aid stations in an infantry outfit.
The doctors would.
They used to have doctors up there.
Right.
Well, why kill a doctor that's gone through 4 years of school?
Right.
And all we had was advanced first aid.
Right.
Advanced first aid training.
Right.
We could do the same thing that needed to be done up there.
Out there in the
Yeah.
field.
Didn't take an MD to do it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And they put a pin on you and call you lieutenant, and you go up and replace a doctor. It can be used to more advantage
Right.
further back in the rear.
Right.
So that's where we went.
And where did you first,
First go in the line.
yeah.
Okay, we followed the
Working first.
4th Division for a while. Even after they went through Paris, conquered Paris or whatever, took them.
Okay. Took it
We
back.
went in, first time I was assigned to a unit was when we got 4th Division, was in the Siegfried Line.
Was in the what?
The Siegfried Line. That
Okay.
was a line of demarcation between Germany and
Anybody else?
France at that time.
And you were in Hurricane Forest. I thought that
And then,
was.
well, no, that was after. That was
Oh,
before
okay.
Hurricane Forest by far.
Okay.
And then we just kept on moving
Moving
along.
forward.
I can't recite everything that
Yeah.
we were.
Yeah.
Right.
There's something's red there. Is that anything?
I don't know.
That means it's on.
Has it been on all the time?
No. I just noticed it.
Down at the end of this.
eyepiece.
I mean, the tape's
Oh, this
run
here.
out. Did the tape run out?
I have no idea.
Let me look in.
It's going fine.
It just means it's recording.
Yeah,
Okay.
you probably just didn't notice it
That's
before.
Probably didn't notice it.
Okay.
I was only over there for about a year. We
Okay.
saw a lot of action.
Yeah.
4th Division was in the line for 104 days or 109 days or something like that, which is an awful long time.
Sure.
And Hurricane Forest was, we were there about 30 days. And they evacuated. The division is about 14,000 men, 14, 15. We evacuated that many.
Wow.
The replacement would come in one day and bring back on a stretcher the next day. They go up in line and come right back. It was murder.
Good.
War as hell.
Yeah. And so when did D-Day happen around this time?
That was.
D-Day was June 6th.
Okay.
That was before you.
That was before we were assigned.
Okay, okay. That's why all these advances we're making, because D-Day really turned things around.
Yeah, we were over there in what, June?
VE Day, you were there.
Oh,
What's the
Yeah.
difference between VE Day and D-Day?
D-Day is when they invaded France.
Right, Normandy, land on the
Yeah,
beaches
that's
of Normandy.
D-Day.
Okay.
VE Day was Victory Europe.
Victory in Europe.
Which was the end of the war?
That's the end of the war in Europe.
Oh, okay, okay.
VJ Day was victory with Japan.
And
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Why did they call it D-Day? I can't.
D-Day, departure.
Okay. So,
Departure Day.
should we go back to your
Yeah,
mom and
let's,
dad, or should we
yeah, like,
finish
let's go to the
is there
18...
more?
Oh, yeah, is there more you want to say about your...
Okay. You started
your
asking me about
experience?
my mother's
Yeah.
background.
Sure.
I don't know an awful lot about my mother's background. She was born and brought up in Arkansas,
Mm-hmm.
Beaver, Arkansas.
Named.
The town was named after her grandfather.
The town was named after the grandfather. Her
Bill-
name was Beaver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We all got that.
Julia Mabel Beaver was mother's
Mhm.
given name.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And her own mother died when she was young. I don't know how old she was, or whatever. But she was brought up by her stepmother.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And she had half-sisters that she's pretty close to, I think, fairly friendly with.
Mm-hmm.
And her father was Bill Beaver. And two times, I think, as kids, we went down to visit her folks.
Mm-hmm.
He would meet us at a train in Eureka Springs or someplace like that in Arkansas with a wagon, horse and wagon, and you'd ride for a long time, you'd ford streams and finally get up to where they lived.
Wow.
Back in the hills,
She was a real hillbilly.
literally a hillbilly.
What was that? Was it a farm?
I
They
don't
had
know.
didn't they have a store?
I think
they
yeah.
had a country store.
I was just a little kid and I had
Right.
no idea really exactly
Right.
what they did. But
But we saw pictures of them at with a store, at a
Okay.
store. I think he was storekeeper.
Okay.
But anyway, it's very interesting. Libby's mother was a teacher. My mother was a teacher.
Without any education,
Well,
Wow.
except
high school education, that was all.
no
Mhm.
and then she went to University of Idaho for summer school and met this dashing young
He was a
professor.
chemistry teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he was spitting too. Mother was, I don't think she was a redhead, but she was
She
auburn.
was red.
Red,
Well, that's what they tell me.
auburn hair, I thought. But anyway, light complexion.
Uh-huh.
And they got married. That was in Moscow, Idaho, of course.
They got married.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was born in Moscow. Don't you remember going to school? You kids used to go and tell your classmates, my dad was born in Moscow.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, do you know where Grandma's ancestors came from? Your grandma
I do not.
or your
I
mom?
really don't.
Okay. Was it French? Wasn't she
No,
part
no,
French or something?
Anglo-Saxon is what I've been told.
So you're Great
English.
Britain? Okay, from Great Britain
Yeah.
somewhere?
And Dad's parents primarily were
Quaker.
Scottish, Quaker, Scots, Quakers.
Are there any beavers left in Beaver, Arkansas?
I don't know.
You got a
Well,
inheritance from
Yeah, I got
somebody.
inheritance from Zelda and her sister, whatever.
Wow.
Every
Something-
holiday kid got $2,000.
$2,000.
Wow.
From the-
They loved Julie, I guess, and they didn't have any families of their own.
Wow.
So Julie was my mother, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Dad called her Mabel.
Mm-hmm.
Julia Mabel was her name. He liked Mabel, so that's what he called her.
But everybody else called her.
Everybody else called her Julie.
Mm.
She would be in a book club, say in Highland Park, where we grew up, and it was always Julia.
Uh-huh.
I said, "Who's Julia?" "Oh, you mean that one?"
So then,
Go
okay.
ahead.
Anything more about his mom's side?
Well, what was your mom like? Just,
She was a busy woman. She had 6 kids,
uh-huh,
and she was busy. I was happened to be the oldest,
uh-huh,
and she was busy taking care of her family most of the time.
uh-huh,
But she was a very loving person.
mm-hmm,
When she had time to relax enough to do a little of it,
yeah,
Good sense of humor.
a wonderful sense of humor.
Elfin sense of humor.
Elfin sense, and very intelligent. We learned good English because Mother knew enough about language to teach us proper English.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, she was very strict.
Very particular about how we
came across language-wise.
How we spoke and how we wrote.
Right.
His father ruled the roost,
Mm-hmm.
but she just loved Daddy. Anything Daddy said was fine. Oh, Daddy. Things have changed.
Okay, go ahead, ask some more questions.
Well,
We
that
could start
reminds
rambling,
me.
and that's not very productive.
That reminds me, I didn't want to go backwards, but I wanted to ask you what your mom was like. I know you were young
I
when she
don't
died,
know.
but
She was supposed to, I
Anybody
have
tell you?
some pictures of her. She was supposed to be very beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you know
Very
anything about her
sweet.
personality? Sweet and.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You were what, 4 years old or something?
3.5.
3.5.
Yeah.
She died in April,
Mhm.
and I would either, yeah, her birthday was in February, she died in April, and I would have been 4 in July.
Mhm. Okay. Well, anyway, then I suppose we should go on to your dad.
Yeah, how far do you know of your dad's origins?
Well, of course, he's born in Denver, Colorado, and I guess he's a pretty good student. I don't know that much about him.
Well, he went to Boulder, he went to University,
University.
Boulder.
Colorado and Boulder.
Colorado, Boulder.
Went to University of Chicago. Where did he get his master's? At Columbia?
He didn't take a master's. He took graduate work at Chicago and at Columbia, and he taught in, pardon?
I thought he got a master's. Everybody called him doctor, but he didn't get a
Well,
doctorate.
I've never heard the word master's. Maybe he did.
All
I
right,
don't know. He wanted to know more chemistry, so that's why he went into teaching, and he wound up there in Moscow, Idaho, ag school,
Mm-hmm.
ag college. And from there he went to,
South Dakota.
North Dakota, Fargo, North Dakota, and taught there, which was an ag school too, I think.
Jeez.
And that's about the time war came along,
Mm-hmm.
and whether he signed up or was drafted, I don't know. I
World
don't think
War
they had
One.
drafted. World War One, yeah, World War One. And I can remember as a little kid, and I couldn't have been any more than 3 years old, a big parade with all kind of drums and military uniforms and stuff. Drumming up, I guess, for
Didn't lose-
patriotism and
Mhm.
joining the army, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
Uncle Sam wants you.
Mhm.
And at one time they told me that I was always running away. And one time they had to pluck me off a freight train. I was on a freight train.
Why were you running away?
Boxcar.
I didn't know that.
Well, that's what I've been told. I don't remember that.
Huh.
But I've been told. Caught me before the train got going.
Where were you trying to get to?
I don't
Did they
know.
say? No.
Just going, I guess.
And so your dad
One of
went
those.
to World War One
So-
after you were born?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
I was about 3, 4.
Mhm.
Sometime-
We were 4 when World War I was over.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you know where he fought?
He did.
Oh, he didn't
He was
fight.
in the sanitary corps, which was
Inspected meat.
inspected meat and stuff like that. I don't even think they had a sanitary corps. It'd be a branch of the quartermaster corps. no?
Okay.
Mhm.
He was
I
an
know
officer.
I know he was stationed at one time at the Newport News in Virginia, and I've seen pictures or heard of him riding horseback down there along the ocean among the troops and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I can remember going crabbing down there with somebody and getting awful sick eating little crabs that come off these mud banks and stuff.
Right.
But that's all I can remember of that portion of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you couldn't get your way, you'd say to your mother, "I'll make a noise," because they were living in apartments or rooming houses.
Okay, we moved all over for a while. I said North Dakota. Then we get down, I talked about Arkansas. Dad would be going someplace, maybe that was when he went to Chicago for whatever length of time for biochemistry courses.
Right.
And we'd be down in Arkansas during that period.
Right.
And then there was another time we were there, and I don't know why. Then he went to Columbia for a while. I can remember New York.
Wow. You
Little-
sure had
little
a
fits
quite a
and-
childhood.
Bits and fits of it.
Right.
Around.
And then we were,
From Arkansas to New York.
then we were back in Arkansas, And Dad, I guess, had already gone to get a job in New York, and we took a long train ride and joined him in New York. And we were there for a while. And finally, I can't remember where we came from to go to New Jersey. It wasn't from New York, it was from someplace quite a bit west of there.
Okay, and that's when he got a job with Squibb?
He got a job with Squibb. U.S. Squibb. So.
And what was his position there?
No, just a biochemist, research biochemist.
Okay.
But he wound up as manager, director of the laboratories there in New Brunswick, the biochemical laboratories.
Wow.
And he was very effective and very well respected, and everybody there knew him. And he was well known in the industry too, of course. And he worked for, at the initiation of insulin, one of his fortes was assays. You can have a drug, but what is the dosage? And you have to learn how to be able to measure the amount of units of whatever is effective in the drug.
Right.
So that when you give an injection to somebody, you know exactly how much drug they're getting.
Right.
Not just getting some drug, but how much.
Right.
And then be able to control it so that you stabilize whatever the condition is, like, for example, diabetes.
Right.
And he made many trips up to Toronto to work with Best and Banting on developing insulin.
Neat.
Pardon?
I said neat.
He was sure, you better believe it was neat.
He was,
Pardon?
during World War II, he worked with Fleming on the development of penicillin,
Wow.
and he developed the first large quantity production of penicillin. Before this, it had been grown in, what size liter bottles is this?
It was gallon jugs.
No, it was a liter.
Well, all right.
Which is small, it's almost just about a quart.
I can
No, a
remember.
liter is a gallon.
No, it's not.
Well, then, that's what I say, 10 liters or whatever
Okay.
the,
It was,
Okay.
it was the size of a gallon. I can remember banks of these gallon jugs.
because he'd take us over to the lab.
Okay.
And you get a lot more contamination. It's hard to control, extremely hard to control in that small quantity. So finally, I don't know why or how they developed growing in beer vats.
Like 3 stories tall.
Wow.
You know, where they make beer.
Sure.
And the control was so much better.
Wow.
So he was in charge of this,
He was in charge of the whole plant, yeah.
and now this is working with Squibb?
Squibb, yeah.
That's
And
Squibb.
working
Fleming
with-
is the one that,
Right.
that discovered
So
that.
he worked with Fleming on
Yeah,
the best ways to produce this?
yeah. Fleming used to come to Squibb's and they'd yak.
Wow.
And then the other big thing that he was in on, he did scads and scads of vitamin
B, this and that.
work, A, B, C, D, all that, and production of it and all that. But he worked on that all his
He was a
life.
nut on nutrition, and that was, of course, the #1 item in nutrition those days.
Right. Right.
So then, there was this man that had been to South America, and there'd been this poison that was put on the natives' spears to stun animals and stop their hearts, actually, but it was a humane way. And this man thought there was something that could be done with it. And he went to several pharmaceutical houses, and he finally got to Squibb's and talked to Dad, and Dad accepted. You know, he tried and worked with this thing. And so he developed curare.
Which
And
is
he
used
developed
for-
an assay for measuring finite doses of curare.
Which is used for?
It's a muscle relaxant. It's used mainly for abdominal surgery. One of the most important or difficult parts of abdominal surgery are all these muscles that are pulling like this.
Oh, in reaction to your...
Well, no, just the way you live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so in order to do surgery on them, and you didn't have to give people as deep an anesthesia
Right.
if you could relax it. Because the first thing you do when you give an anesthesia is to put them to sleep, kill the pain, and there's different levels of anesthesia. And the last one is muscle relaxant.
Okay.
So if you can relax the muscle first,
Right, you don't
or
have to give
earlier.
as much of this stuff.
they don't have to have so much anesthesia.
Right.
Ether was about one of the first really effective anesthetics. The there were 3 stages of relaxation to the point of number 4, which is close to death. And if there's a lot of surgery, the anesthetist had to be very careful to keep you just above being dead.
Right.
So you relax enough that the surgeon could work without muscles
Right. Right.
pulling every direction.
Wow.
And so with curare, you could give curare for relaxation, just enough to relax the surgical area, and pentothal,
Sodium
sodium pentothal, to put you to sleep. You didn't have to go to a deep, deep, deep level. Just enough to go to sleep and then be able to relax. When you wake up, there's no headache, there's no nausea.
Wow.
So wasn't penicillin, didn't they rush into that so they could use it during World War II?
My dad was from the first one, you know, being a doctor in northern Illinois. It was saved mainly for the service, but he was able to get some and treat somebody with some disease and save his life because he was able to con somebody into giving him some penicillin.
Wow.
But anyway, getting back to curare, so Duncan then was going to Johns Hopkins for his residency. And so he did a lot of clinical tests on curare, which means what a clinical test is, you know, you read about, well, they've developed something, now they have to test it on 500 humans. That's a clinical test. And so Duncan did a lot of the clinical tests on curare.
Wow.
Neat. And Duncan is your brother,
My brother was an anesthesiologist, and he's done an awful lot of research, including on curare.
Wow. Family
So
business,
he
huh?
developed some of the finer points of the use of curare, besides running clinical tests.
He preferred the research, of course, but he had to feed his family, so then he'd do the clinical would be operations and stuff. And that's what happened, you know, this new, everything is changing in this world. He retired, he was down in Nashville at Vanderbilt, and he wanted to retire, partially retire. He didn't want to be on schedule.
He loves research, he wanted to do research.
He wanted to do research, and he wanted to do a little bit of clinical work at his choice. He wanted to do the yummy special surgeries, you know. Well, in order to do any of those things, you have to have insurance. And anesthesiologists have one of the highest insurance rates of all medical professions. And he couldn't make enough money to pay his insurance premiums, much less feed Nita and keep up a house.
This is working part-time.
Yeah.
See, if he was full-time with the university.
Yeah, the university paid his insurance, see?
Okay.
Yeah.
And so he's does some research, but not much.
Yeah.
Okay.
And no clinical stuff.
Oh, okay.
And Duncan was named after your grandfather, Duncan Holaday.
Yeah, could you tell us about where the Holadays come from and how many, you know, as far back as you can go?
Okay, best we know, they originated in Scotland. And what was the name of the town?
Joseph has a thing there.
Dumfries?
Dumfries, yeah. Dumfries, D-U-M.
Dumfries, Scotland?
Yeah.
Where the Holadays are from? So maybe if we go back there and look for some Holadays, there might be some 4 generations.
This Olivia's third husband, Richard Ballard.
Ballard, that's it.
Richard Ballard. When he was driving his Rolls Royce around the British Isles you have to put on so many miles before you bring a car. Did we tell you, any man's a fool who doesn't go to Europe to get his car and bring it back.
And when it's a used car, it's a lower rate to bring it back.
Okay.
But it has to have so many miles on it.
Right.
And so he drove it all around the British Isles, and he was telling about going to Dumfries and seeing Holaday Duncan, and so he thinks that perhaps that was where they came from.
Ah, okay.
Wow.
But Grandpa came from a Quaker family,
Uh-huh.
so that's the only thing we really know. And he used to make fun of little grandma because she was a staunch Methodist and she was always working for the church, and he'd make fun of her because Quakers don't do things quite like that.
Mm-hmm.
They're good Christians, but they
Good
didn't make a
people.
lot of noise about it.
Yeah. And little grandma was Ida Olivia Swallow Holiday, right? And they called her Olivia. Is that?
Yeah.
So who came over on a boat? We've got, I understand as far back as Duncan Holiday, which is my great-grandfather.
Yeah.
And then where did his father
We
or
don't
mom
know.
come from? You don't
We
know?
don't know. We don't
Okay,
know.
you think Joseph knows that?
Oh,
Joseph
yeah.
might.
Oh, he would. He's
I'm
made
sure.
up the family
Yeah,
tree.
yeah. We
Knows
should-
the whole thing.
we
And
should-
Duncan's
Doug probably
the-
knows too, okay.
Yeah. I think Doug and Joseph have corresponded quite a bit, haven't they?
Yeah, although
And
not
Doug's
recently.
visited him too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and not in the past year though, since Doug's
No.
been real busy with
Doug's too
work.
busy. And
But anyway,
Also, Doug found, and I can't remember how he did, but he found a book someplace written by some relative. I can't remember the details. You'll have to ask Doug.
about,
The holiday background.
oh, okay.
He found relatives that nobody knew existed.
Oh, okay.
And Joseph has a whole book that he gave to Doug.
Yeah, and all the old correspondence. And
Right,
I was wondering where Doug keeps them.
yeah.
Yeah, because we've never heard of that.
So what else?
Doug just had no time this time to
Mm-hmm.
even sit down and talk that way.
So Dad, tell us about your family, as there were seven of you?
Siblings.
Six.
Six of you.
There were seven.
And,
There were seven, yeah, one little boy died, the last one.
okay, tell us about, who, okay, one little boy died, how old was the boy?
I was listening here in just a few months.
Oh, okay,
I was born first in Moscow. Dunk was born second in Denver.
Yeah.
LZ was a third. Bill wasn't born until after we got to New Jersey.
mm-hmm,
And then Julie and Marianne, all in New Jersey. So
Mhm.
those three in New Jersey, and the other three around the country.
okay. All right, and what the baby died, the last one died from?
The last one died,
He was always sickly from the
he
time
was
he
sick
was
to
born.
begin with.
Oh, okay.
Sick to begin with.
Probably mother was too old.
I think they gave him transfusions by transfusing blood in his back to be absorbed. I guess in those days, they wouldn't be able to transfuse into a vein for a little infant.
Okay,
In fact, pediatrics had not advanced that far.
yes,
Yeah.
okay.
If you could keep the baby alive for a year, good, then he could make it.
Yeah.
Well, he couldn't stay alive, I don't think, more than 3 or 4 months at the
Oh,
most.
okay.
I don't think it was that long. He couldn't
Okay.
remember.
So what kind of memories do you have of your childhood as far as what the family did for fun, or what things were like?
Anything and everything. We didn't have parks and stuff to play in. There was a Bugalo Park. As far as structured entertainment, there was a YMCA and the Boy Scouts. The rest of it, we played with our friends.
Yeah, you pretty much were in the city, weren't you, or kind of a
Well,
suburb
Highland
of the
Park
city?
was a borough. It wasn't out in the country. Libby keeps saying I'm a city boy. Well, there was a lot more country there than you'll
Yeah.
find today, really.
Yeah.
Tell him about burning the cement sacks.
Oh, okay, there was a lot
That
of
mean
construction.
mother of yours.
A lot of construction. There were these storm sewers, big cement sewers, which are, I don't know, 4 feet or so,
Sure.
4.5 feet in diameter.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get big rains, and we would get them, they would come flooding down the streets and go into the
It has
storm
nothing to do with
sewers.
the story.
Well, yes, it does. So then they would be dumped down in the gullies, like down our street,
Uh-huh.
and that would go down the river, which would go to the ocean.
Uh-huh.
Well, okay, all this construction was going on, they had a lot of empty cement sacks. Well, you make a fire, make it inside we didn't plan it this way, it just worked out that way. It was in a...
So it wasn't
in one of these-
premeditated?
What?
It wasn't premeditated.
It wasn't premeditated, not for
Okay.
what happened. We put it in the sewer, so it wasn't gonna burn anything, wasn't gonna burn any wood, or woods. We had a lot of woods, and you could get forest fires.
Yeah, but go on, stay with the story.
So that way, the wind was blowing into the sewer, and so the smoke would travel in that direction, and come billowing up about a block from us in First Avenue.
4 or 5 or 6 blocks it was.
Oh, yeah, but it kept on going. And all the smoke all
All
over the place.
manholes.
Fire engines tearing up, looking for the fire, they couldn't find it.
And his mother made them come home and not watch what the firemen were doing. Now that's child abuse.
Yeah, that was, so
Did they know,
never
did they know you
found out
did it?
where-
Did your parents know you did it?
Oh, they knew what we did, but nobody told anybody. We sure as heck didn't go tell them.
Oh. How did your mom know what you did?
She knew. Well, how do mothers know what
This is
happened?
only
They
half
know
a block
everything.
away from the house.
Yeah.
We're just down the street.
Now, what is this? It's the cement burns?
No,
The
cement
bags,
bags.
the
Oh, the
bags.
bags, paper
Okay.
bags.
Paper
Okay.
bags.
Empty.
There's yeah,
Oh,
empty
okay.
bags,
Okay, I understand.
and they'd toss them in a pile, somebody
Right.
threw them away. They
And-
were nice and dry, you could burn them, so you burn them.
And then the other thing, if they did something bad, she'd make them go out and cut their own switches.
We bring back
That's
nice little
child
dried
abuse.
twigs,
Yeah,
that's no good, you know, go get a good one. We bring back a good one, she'd use it too.
yeah,
But they had to cut their own switches.
oh,
Oh, well.
huh,
So then you learn not to do things you have to cut your own switch for.
right. So you think that was pretty effective, huh?
Yeah.
Now, what you do is you cut down every bush within a square mile. is what you do.
That would be decimation.
Yeah, well,
No, as far as entertainment was concerned, we made our own pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
We never really got in too much trouble, except something like that.
Right.
I just love that though. Can't you just see the smoke pouring out of these manholes?
yeah,
And then
nobody knows where it is.
knowing darn well what
On a
happened.
fire someplace.
Make the
but
kids
where-
come in and not watch what the firemen are doing.
Really?
That's awful.
So what else?
I don't know, that's pretty thorough.
So Grandma and Grandpa, why did they leave New Brunswick? Because of Holmes and Wheeler?
Yeah, they
No.
retired.
Well, Dad had retired,
Okay.
and he wanted to do something that would keep him busy, and so he bought a business. He had first, before he even thought of Holmes and Wheeler, he bought a farm down in Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
a place called the Barracks.
Beautiful.
And it's called the Barracks because it was part of the Underground Railroad, where
The slaves.
slaves would be transferred from the south to the north. And they would be hidden there at nighttime, I guess, and travel some more during the nights,
Mm-hmm.
hide during the day.
Mm-hmm.
And it was absentee ownership, and he had somebody, I guess they were raising cattle.
They were
First you started to raise wheat, and then the government had this program where the more wheat you don't grow, the more you get paid, because there was a surplus of wheat. Well, of course, Dad didn't believe in that kind of nonsense,
Yeah,
so he got out of wheat and went into Black Angus cattle, which I guess was all right, but it just wasn't productive financially.
Well, he was raising Black Angus.
Black Angus, yeah.
None but the best, but the farm manager was chipping him.
So he just sold that and was looking for something else, and he found this business advertised in the Wall Street Journal up in New Hampshire, and he pursued that and bought it. And he asked not Duncan, but Elsie, and me to come and run the place.
Both of you?
Yeah. Elsie was going to be the manager of the outfit. I was going to be the salesman,
Uh-huh.
because I was selling for squibs at that time.
Okay.
I'd just come out of a Korean thing.
Uh-huh.
And Elsie's wife didn't want to come east to begin with. She said, well, I'll do it for a year. She and her mother were very close, and that was in Chicago, where she came from. And when the year was up, she said, I'm going back home. You coming with me?
Yeah.
Elsie had no choice. Either
Yeah.
that or else just break up the family.
Yeah.
And so I wound up running a business that was turned out to be bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know a darn thing about running a business. I didn't know anything about the oil business or the coal business, which we're also in.
Plumbing.
But I learned.
Yeah.
We survived.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And when you were working for Squibb, you were in Wyoming?
I was in Wyoming, yeah.
Uh-huh.
That was after the war, and I'd gone back to school to take some business administration courses. And it wasn't that great, and I had a family by that time, and
Yeah.
I was going nowhere, and I was working part-time for Container Corporation of America. They had plants all over, and this was out on 35th Street, up from the university area, where we were living at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And was thinking of doing something else I could make more money. And there was an outfit called Letterly, which was a drug outfit
Mm-hmm.
for selling drugs. So I applied to that. And Dad heard about it and said, "What's the matter with Squibb?" And I said, "Nothing wrong with Squibb, it's a wonderful outfit." But I didn't believe in nepotism.
Yeah.
He was working for Squibb. He said, "If you work for Squibb, you're on your own. You're not,
Yeah.
I don't have anything to do with it." So I applied, and they said, "Yeah, okay." And I was assigned out to Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
Brand new as a drug salesman in a country that was a lot different than anything I'd ever grown up in.
Mm-hmm.
We loved it. Just loved it.
Yeah.
We had a wonderful time.
Mm-hmm.
And I did pretty well, too.
You did.
I didn't know anything, but I was just open. I had some training.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd ask questions I couldn't answer. I don't know, but I'll find out. And I did.
That's
It
great.
worked out.
That's great.
And so what'd you do in this Korean thing?
I was supposed to go to Camp McCoy up in Wisconsin. I don't know what I was going to be up in there. But anyway, that was changed. And I was sent to Camp Atterbury in Indiana and assigned to an evac hospital, 750-bed evac hospital. Evacuation hospital was the same kind of thing they used in World War II.
And it's the same as MASH.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
That was the days of MASH.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have any frontline aid stations and stuff. They'd take them back a little bit, put them on a helicopter and take them to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the MASH hospitals. So evac hospitals were a thing of the past. But we were still operating as an evac hospital training center. And we would train the guys. This wasn't, we were assigned as a unit. And we finished our training unit, and they would bleed everybody off and just leave a small cadre to train the next bunch coming in. But the guys that went over were well-trained surgical techs, medical techs, aid people for hospitals or whatever. And they would stick a rifle in their hand, put them in line, and they were no good for themselves as infantrymen. And if you were a trained infantryman, you didn't want somebody like that next to you who didn't know a darn thing.
Yeah, but most of that was in World War II, not in Korea.
No, this was in Korea too.
Was this Korea too?
Yeah. And they would, they just weren't effective as Koreans, and they were being used for what they were trained for. Now, I don't mean Koreans, as infantrymen. They weren't being used for what they were trained for. So we kept training the units and sending them over as replacements for infantry people. And when my 17 months was up, I was out of the Army.
Finally.
And then finally, and that was when I came back to Wyoming. They
Back
said,
to
"What are you
Wyoming.
gonna do?" To New Hampshire. I wanted to go back to Wyoming.
Yeah.
And Dad got this place and wanted me to come here.
Yeah.
Not here, but I mean, New
There.
Hampshire.
Right.
And you're still there to this day.
We're still there.
And so tell us what's going on in your lives right now in New Hampshire.
Pardon?
Tell us what's happening now in New Hampshire as far
Trying to
as...
sell the house.
Yeah.
We're gonna retire. Retire for sure. I retired in '84, really.
The house at 8 Nesmith Street, right?
8 Nesmith Street.
Right, where I grew up all my life.
We
That's not where
were,
we first went. but
we were
anyway.
there when you were born.
Right.
And Doug's lived there from time he was, what, 2?
Too, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was
Little-
born where we were at the farm.
No, on Abbott Street.
That's right. Right after
We
we got
moved to
there.
the farm when he was a month old.
Mm-hmm. Are you gonna miss 8 Nesmith Street?
Right now, it's so beautiful, the flowers are so, the yard has never been more beautiful than this year.
The house has never been more comfortable than it is now.
You know, in the
It's just a
last,
nice little house, very
Yeah,
comfortable.
yeah.
and in the last year or so, it has had to have several big improvements done, or repairs
Major
done.
replacements.
Right.
Major replacements.
Something gets
So
to
it's in
25,
much
30
better
years
shape.
old, wears out.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So it's in good
Yeah.
condition.
So I'm dried up.
Well, thank you very much, Mom and Dad. We love you very much, and thanks for visiting us out here in Oregon. And we look forward to visiting you this Christmas, 1992, and seeing Andrew Ethan Holaday for the first time, who at this moment is only 6 months old.
Your youngest grandchild?
Yeah, your youngest
To
grandchild.
date?
And
As far as we know.
now, let's kiss.
A soft kiss.
A soft kiss.
Soft kiss.
That's soft enough.
That's great. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Fade out.